Cinco de Mayo.
Oh yeah, and just passed the Star Wars epic May the 4th be with you.
There you go. There you go. Well, this is one of those broadcasts where you just go,
Well, yeah, it's going to be very ad lib, I think,
yes.
or glib, one of the two.
Well, despite our best efforts to come up with some uplifting, positive stuff to talk about today, we failed.
Well, maybe on the world scene, but out here we're looking at a little bit of rain to keep the grass green and the trees growing and maybe filling our reservoirs. So yeah, I guess on a plus side, that's okay.
Oh, well, what about your trials and tribulations with the local news of the RCMP versus the Surrey Police Department?
Well, it's up to the Supreme Court justice for the BC Supreme Court to make a decision on whether holding an election based on an issue and having that issue become the winning aspect, or whether it is, as the government says, you can vote all you want, but you really shouldn't expect to get everything that you vote for, which basically means that we're stuck then with a dictatorship telling us what's best for us. Yeah, time will tell. Hopefully there will be some sanity in the court and the courts will be able to rule on it. That's asking a lot, I know, but
Well, let's understand that we are living in strange times.
oh, we certainly are. We are governed in the province of British Columbia by a party called the New Democratic Party, shortened to NDP, often because they themselves realize that they are not new anymore. They've been in existence for, oh, probably 4, maybe 5 decades. I don't know if that's still considered new in political terms or not, but I'm starting to believe that they are becoming the niche dictatorship party. They're telling us about what's good for us for police force. They're telling us what's good for housing. They're telling us what kind of cars we're going to be able to drive. But maybe that's just me. I don't know.
Well, we're going through a period in history, I think, where we have leadership. We spoke about this a couple of times now already, but this whole issue of people who we elect or have elected who are from a particular part of the cloth that's cut out that seems to be the juvenile part or the part that was depressed in terms of standards of leadership.
Well, yeah, and you're right on that. I guess it's just one of those things where you sit back and you think these are the generation of individuals where you got a ribbon if you showed up, you got a an honorable mention if you did something, even if you didn't do it, because nobody could fail. And I wonder if that's just all starting to come back and bite us in the backside.
Well, let's journey south of the border and look what's been going on with the various universities with the protests, the
Mhm.
pro-Palestinian protests, the protesting of a war that really isn't an American war, which has the same hallmarks of the 60s and the 70s during the Vietnam War, where the students, demonstrated against a war that the United States was actually involved in with
Well, I guess, yeah.
so the passion with which that was uh, dealt with by both the demonstrators and the government. We're old enough, unfortunately, to remember that. And
Mhm.
we also remember things like Kent State,
Yeah,
you know, the cost to a generation of young people, some of whom ended up in this country because they weren't about to, you know, croak, you know, in Vietnam for a war that no one understood, and to this very day it's proven
still
to
don't
be,
understand.
you know,
Yeah,
what was the point of all that. And 56,000 Americans died needlessly in that war. Never mentioned the hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people in Southeast Asia who were
yeah,
killed. You know, and now I'm buying products made in Vietnam, uh, which as if nothing ever happened in the 70s.
yeah, yeah.
So, uh, but what is peculiar about this demonstration, pro-Palestinian, anti-Zionist, anti-Jewish, whatever, anti-Semitic, pro-Islamic, who knows? It's a real called a witch's brew of
It is.
of of issues, and then you look at the response by some of the folks who run these Ivy League schools, in particular in the U.S., or these sit-ins, demonstrations, encampments, whatever you want to call them. They could not control it, and then you hear their negotiating position with the demonstrators, who to a large extent aren't even students at those universities. These are paid agitators. It's But they don't arrest anybody, and if they do, they release them on bail, and then they put up with silly demands made by some of these demonstrators about, you know, what kind of food they can have while they're occupying some hall. I mean, it was just it's very serious. On the one hand, obviously the whole business, what's going on in the Middle East, is terribly serious, but the juvenile way in which the leadership at the universities and the missteps being made with law enforcement and how to deal with the agitators and their ilk, you know, it seems to be just so uh, unserious, I guess. In spite of the fact there's a lot of serious damage being done, there's a lot of people getting hurt, uh, both physically and in future, you know, perhaps
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
jobs prospects and everything else. But it's like a fire hose that's been cut open, and it just keeps gushing out, and there are no adults, it appears, who are able to deal with this. The media is totally blinded by its own agenda, which appears to be, uh, let's see how many programs we can put out, or how much clickbait we can get out of this, as opposed to covering the actual matter at hand. Certainly, the business of the actual war in the Middle East, people have forgotten what precipitated all this. They're now focusing on what to do with the genocide that is now being bandied about by the demonstrators, and even to some extent by the U.S. Canadian government, you know, who seem to think that they're the victims now are only on the side of Hamas and so on, which the numbers are extraordinarily large in terms of the number of people killed and injured on the Palestinian side.
Yeah.
And certainly one has to bear that in mind. But again, as I say, I don't see adults in the room, as we like to use as a cliche, on this issue. And it just goes on and on and on. Here, we're a long way now from October 7th. This is the 5th of
Yeah.
May. Okay. And this was not an overnight, you know, excursion of the Israeli military into the Gaza. This has become a much broader and much wider conflict with serious ramifications.
Yeah, and I guess, the protesters themselves are talking about, well, you have to stop funding, the universities can't take any money from Israel, or we can't have this or we can't have that, or anything that we develop can't go to Israel for development of whatever. And I guess it gets down to much like what we have on any situation. Okay, so you take that away, and that funding or that bursaries or whatever it is, uh, what does that actually mean? Well, it means your tuitions are going to go up. It means that somebody who may not get that bursary, who could be the next Nobel Peace Prize winner, is going to get to go to the university. And I guess if we lived in an ideal utopian world, one, there wouldn't be war, I guess, and two, there'd be no hunger and there'd be no rich and no poor. I don't know what the answer is there, but we get stuck in that when we sit here, and even locally and provincially, federally, state level, whatever you want to talk about, we expect things, but we're not willing to give things up because we don't think things through. Right? Uh, and I don't know when that's going to stop. You know, like, we're running out of money. I'm sure the United States is running out of money. I'm pretty sure that Russia and China are running out of money. I'm pretty sure that India is running out of money. Uh, what's going to happen when we wake up one morning and the magic money tree has disappeared?
Well, you raise a question which doesn't seem to be one that is actually raised by our illustrious leadership or the media, and is who is profiting from all this? Uh, because this, you know, there's an old saying in law enforcement, as you know, when you're looking for bad guys, is follow the money.
Mhm.
And now, okay, it's easy to say that in the case of the money being sent to Ukraine, most of it goes by way of the military industrial complex in the US, whether it's I won't name the companies, but in California, there's a lot of aerospace industry that's going to get money for this, and on the East Coast, a lot of the naval military procurement will take place. And a lot of folks in the bubble known as Washington will make a whole lot of money out of thin air. So that's easy. But what about the rest of it? What's the sort of the pot of gold for the Chinese or the Russians or the other intermediaries involved here? Why would the Europeans cut off the nose to spite their face on this? Because that's what it seems to be from a distance. Why is a country with practically no military investiture of any kind anymore, called Canada, sending literally millions of dollars to Ukraine, where we don't even have the resources to adequately keep this military going in this country? So so there are questions are being not asked by the absence of adults in the room. When you have a fellow by the name of Macron who runs France that has a next to nothing military itself, apart from a couple of submarines with nuclear weapons on board. He's spouting off about, well, we're just going to send French troops to Ukraine to kill Russians. Well, okay, why don't you ask the folks on the street in Paris or Lyon or
Mhm.
Bordeaux or Nice or whatever, what they think of that idea? I'll bet you're going to get a pretty resounding. Why don't you go straight to
Well, that's true. And
warmer
one step
climates?
farther on that is, I don't know whether he has children, male, female, or otherwise.
No,
Are they going to be on the front line?
he has no kids.
No, that's
Okay, he has no vested interest that way at all.
yeah. So, uh, and again, it goes back to, in the Ukraine, in Russia, in whatever conflict that's going on. I can't help but notice the distinct lack of leaders' offspring aren't anywhere near the fighting.
No, no, there's not. I mean, the the bad joke with the Ukraine thing is that the war will go on till the last Ukrainian is dead, which is very convenient for the West Europeans who don't want to step foot in the conflict. They just want to send weapons, empty, which is a money making thing. I would ask
Mhm.
the Germans, why don't you want to go fight Russians? Well, they already learned their lesson 80 years ago. There's not a good idea. This is not, again, we've forgotten how the Israeli thing started in October
Mhm.
7th. Now we're focusing on a whole other aspect with these demonstrations. We also seem to have completely forgotten or never even wanted to talk about how did the Russian thing start off, because it's now mired in, oh, it just happened, in February of 2 years ago. Well, it didn't happen then. It's been
We woke
going
up
on.
one morning and there it was.
Yeah, there it was, exactly. So, we're not going to, solve anything here with this discussion, but we can certainly raise the issue of how about paying attention to cause and effect, or the consequences of dumb leadership, or
Mhm.
blind leadership, or deaf leadership, or and leadership that has no empathy for the things that are happening. And that we spoke about that in pre-production. And as you remember, I said my problem with a lot of leadership that we have in the West today is they don't seem to be able to talk to me at a human level. When I hear the prime minister or the president pontificate something, it seems like they're talking to somebody else, but they're not talking to me.
Mhm.
They're not. They don't exude any empathy for my problems or my neighbor's problems. It's all about some ideological thing in the horizon that's important for them to promote, but it doesn't have the warmth, it doesn't have the human
No,
touch.
and maybe that goes back, Tom, to the old adage when was it, back with the Magna Carta, where we gave the vast unwashed masses the right to vote.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that contempt or that disdain is still in that elitist part of the people that we're calling government. Why talk down to them? Because they're really not worthwhile anyway.
Well, yeah, and they bandy about terms now that I think even 3 or 4 years ago was almost unheard of. This business, so we have to censor you to the point where only what we think is what you should know, or what we approve of in terms of the information flow. Because if you're not in approval, then you're something. And again, this has been growing for a while. I was very dismayed this week, for example, in the Canadian Parliament, where they tossed out, or sorry, last week when they tossed out the leader of the opposition and one of the other opposition members, the speaker, tossed him out of Parliament because he felt that there was unparliamentary language going on. And again, if anybody wants to look it up, who's not Canadian, the leader of the opposition called the prime minister and his policies wacko policies and a whack job. The Speaker of the House immediately felt that this was unparliamentary language and tossed him out of the chamber along with another MP. And then it turns out that this is clearly a setup by the Speaker, who's not unbiased. This guy is turning out to be a hack for the Prime Minister's party, and that's where he comes from. And he himself has had two ethics violations registered against him. How did he get to be Speaker in a Parliament? And so to make matters worse, the MP, a woman who he couldn't remember her name during the debate, called her by her maiden name, and then discovered she's been married for a while, has another name. Uh, uh, when the Hansard was published, which is the official publication of the proceedings of the House of Commons, they did a little editing as to what exactly was said during the debate. Now this starts to smack of not just being juvenile or not a very adult-like a speaker, but this smacks of corruption, because you don't go around changing what was actually said to suit your political agenda. And this
Well, it wasn't
particular
about
speaker looks like,
1984, Tom.
Yeah, or well, I understand you lie enough, it becomes the truth. But this guy and his cadre around him, they didn't waste any time. They simply, ignored the audio recording, ignored the transcripts, and wrote something totally different. In other words, you commit a crime by omission, not commission. He omitted the words that this woman said about withdrawing her statement. So it's still, so this starts to smell very bad.
Yeah, it
I
does.
mean,
Yeah.
really bad. And what precipitated all this in my mind is being completely disingenuous by the prime minister of this country is every time the opposition was asking about inflation, the response was that we have to talk about white supremacy. Every time the opposition wanted to talk about the cost of housing, the response is we have to talk about never white supremacy. 5 questions or so were asked about something that had nothing to do with what the response came back. And this race baiting that this prime minister has decided to embark on is so typical of sleazy American politics, where race baiting has been going on now for at least 2 presidencies, which is disgusting as disgusting can be. This joker now decides he's going to try the same stunt. So if I ask you, why is the unemployment rate in Canada 6.9%? The response is, I want to talk about white supremacy. And I'm getting very tired of it. Okay.
Yeah.
This is
Well,
this is this is so over the top. Apart from being distasteful, this is not what a legitimate uh, adult leader does. Okay, this is not how you respond. If you want to do race baiting, you go do something else, not be the prime minister of a once
well, yeah, and I guess
respected country.
coupled with that, how does that, with what our background is in the organization,
Mm-hmm.
how would that work with border issues? I mean, we had talked in pre-production, we've got a million people sitting here that I don't even think they know what their status is. There's no jobs for them. There's no housing for them. There's uh, is if we ask that kind of question, are we going to get the fact that this is white supremacist at its core? I don't know. There
Well,
just seems to be a lack of willingness to act on things that should be acted upon, uh, versus a scripted Hollywood type movie statement. I don't
well, it
know.
is it is scripted race baiting, and now he's doing videos for basically election purposes, where he's sitting around uh, ostensibly working in his office, and suddenly his cell phone rings, and some constituent wants to know an answer to a question. Now, prime ministers and presidents don't operate that. You just don't phone up the prime minister or the president. Hey, by the way, I like to know why the price of beer is what it is. It doesn't work that way. But
Yeah.
this childish really, I just apart from being juvenile and childish and unstatesmanlike, you can see the I guess the fear of losing the election, or the
Well, that and I
this.
guess too, you sit back and is this just another left hand, right hand thing where people are talking about this with the real issues are in fact that and we want to get answers on a lot of things, but we're being told lots of things
Yes,
that we really don't want to hear, or we maybe we should listen to some of it. But
that
when you
could.
get governments, and I don't know how it is in the States, and I don't know how it is in Europe, but here in Canada, we have the federal government embarking on issues that, to me, constitutionally, they have no business being involved in, like healthcare at the provincial level, like offering money to cities bypassing the provincial level, where if you do certain things the way we want you to do them, then you'll get money. And it really doesn't matter whether your provincial government agrees with us or not. That's the way it's going to be. And then we have this mandate that by 2030 or 2035, you will be in an electric car. That's kind of like Henry Ford. You can have any color car you want as long as it's black. Now,
Yes. Well,
it's starting to wear thin
yeah,
with the.
and starting to wear thin is one that we better pay attention to, because at some point human beings lose patience, and I'm worried that the longer they play this race baiting game, and the lying game, and the looking over your talking over the people game, uh, and continually obfuscate the truth, that you're playing like kids playing with matches,
Mhm.
and uh, I fear for some black swan event that will make all this come totally unraveled, and then good luck finding the adults who'll fix this, because at the moment, this is just I think we live in much scarier times than we're really prepared to admit to. I
Well, I
really
guess
do.
part of this now comes to the fact that we have 1 million people here that, and I don't know how many in the United States that are, I wouldn't even call them new arrivals because, they're here at their pleasure, not at the government pleasure.
Yeah, the newcomers.
And well, newcomers, yeah, I guess in newspeak.
Newspeak
Uh,
is newcomers. Yeah,
but these are the people that I wonder, are they the ones that are sitting in and causing the unrest at the university level? Is this going to have a major backlash on legitimate people who are fleeing for fear of their life, some event like in the Ukraine or in Israel or in Palestine or wherever it is. We what was it in 1939 where the Canadian government turned away 2 shiploads of Jewish people?
yeah.
I mean, we don't want to get to that point.
Well, but
Uh,
apparently anti-Semitism now has become quite fashionable. Maybe the wrong choice of words, but it seems to be this thing's raised its ugly head. We would have thought that was well and truly buried, but here we go. This become race baiting, become a religious conundrum for many now. Uh, you know, this is not going to end well. I'm sorry, this is just not going to end well.
and
I
unfortunately,
feel
it's
very
going to hurt the
concerned.
people that really shouldn't be hurt. Um, in my opinion, anyway. I
No, no,
mean,
you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Well, I don't know. Anyway, it's Cinco de Mayo, which is supposedly the big Mexican holiday that is now become a big Canadian American holiday. Good reason to get stinko and have a good party. Except, tomorrow we'll find out how people have hangovers from Cinco de Mayo. But it is what it is. Hey, listen, we're down to the last 30 seconds.
well, gee, that went quick again.
Gee whiz, sure did.
But anyway, yes, happy Cinco de Mayo to anybody that's listening, and I hope the fourth was with you on the May.
Yeah. We'll see you next week. Don't forget to hit that bell to subscribe and say you like and comment as you wish. We won't block you.
Absolutely.
See you next
Have
week.
fun, enjoy.
Yeah. Take care, Bob.
You too.